uh, in the orthodontic tooth movement, you are aware of this case, there is a bone resorption going on the one aspect of the root, and the bone resorption, bone deposition is occurring on the one aspect of the root. And all of this process is mediated through the inflammation that basically activate the osteoblast and osteoclastic cells. So what happened when you apply any kind of the force to any tooth or teeth? There is a lot of biology involved, in which the inflammation is involved in a very simple concept and in a very simple terms, in which the inflammation is involved and in which you would see the bone metabolism. So if any disease or if any medication that is affecting metabolism of the bone, that is affecting the activation of the osteoblast or osteoclast, or if anything which is affecting the inflammation process, is basically affecting the orthodontic tooth movement. How? Because orthodontic tooth movement is conducted and mediated through the inflammation. So anything affecting the inflammation, anything affecting the bone metabolism, it would be definitely be affecting on the orthodontic tooth movement. So let's dive into this mind map. In this mind map, you can see, okay, there are two categories of the drugs which you can see over there. There is drugs which decrease the orthodontic tooth movement, and the drugs that increase the orthodontic tooth movement. So first of all, let's have discussion about how many drugs are increasing the orthodontic tooth movement. Well, there are certain drugs, uh, give these kind of drugs, this can stimulate the tooth movement. However, they are not very practical क्यों नहीं है? Because we cannot give them. For example, let's talk about the prostaglandin. The prostaglandins are basically the painful item. So when we give the prostaglandins, they start increasing pain, and they would have a generalized systemic. If we give them systemically, they will spread throughout the body, and they would have effect on many other things. So we cannot give them for only for the orthodontic reason. If we inject them locally into the periodontal ligament, this will producing a lot of pain. So the concern about the prostaglandin is this, that they are very painful and it is not very practical, which you can see over there. One thing is prostaglandin, parathyroid hormone. As you are aware of this, that parathyroid hormone do a lot of things. So if this hormone is increasing the orthodontic tooth movement by increasing the metabolism, we cannot give PTH hormone only for orthodontic reason, because this will stimulate and interfere into so many other metabolic system into the body that make it non-practical for orthodontic tooth movement. And then comes the relaxin. Relaxin is basically a pregnancy hormone which is released near the pregnancy. And a few words about the relaxin is that it decreases the synthesis and increase the degradation of the collagen, and it facilitate the passage of the baby through the birth canal by decreasing the synthesis and increasing the degradation of the collagen. However, this study has been conducted in the rats. In the human trials regarding the relaxin, we do not have a very high quality of evidence that giving the relaxin can increase the orthodontic tooth movement. The study so far has been proven only in the rats. In the human, the evidence is not established for the woman. For increasing tooth movement, we discussed three things: by relaxin, which increase the degradation and decrease the synthesis of the collagen. However, second point is the evidence regarding regarding the relaxin for use in the orthodontic tooth movement is not proven so far. Regarding the parathyroid hormone, yes, it increased the orthodontic tooth movement because of its so many systemic effect. It is not practical to give this hormone only to increase the orthodontic tooth movement. Regarding the prostaglandin, it is very painful, and administration of the prostaglandin systemic or local inflammation, mediators would be painful. So now let's come to the drugs which decrease the tooth movement. This is practically very important. For example, a patient present to us, and for example, with your mistake, if you have not taken the good history of the drugs, and patient is using any kind of drug which is decreasing the tooth movement, then you would be in trouble after a few months treatment, when you will not be having appreciable results. So let's divide the drugs which decrease the orthodontic tooth movement into two categories. What are those categories? One is the prostaglandin inhibitors. Prostaglandin inhibitors mean that this is, as you all are aware of the fact that the prostaglandin synthesis is a very important step of the inflammation, and this is the prostaglandin is basically the inflammatory mediators. If something is inhibiting the production of the prostaglandin, this is influencing the inflammation, and this will decreasing the orthodontic tooth movement. The second category and class of the drug is the bisphosphonate. How does the bisphosphonate? Because bisphosphonate prevent the activation of the osteoclast. Bisphosphonate prevent, they act exactly like osteoprotein, OPG. Okay, the activation of the osteoclast is inhibited by this drug. So broadly categorized, first we have categorized into two items which increase the orthodontic tooth movement and which decrease the orthodontic tooth movement. Those drugs which decrease the orthodontic tooth movement have have been divided into two categories, which the one is the prostaglandin inhibitors, the other is the bisphosphonate. So let's dive into the full details. What are the prostaglandin inhibitors? What kind of the drugs which can inhibit the production of the prostaglandin? These drugs are again divided into three categories. One is the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. You must be aware of from your pharmacology. Other is the steroid. The third is other category of the drug which can affect the prostaglandin levels. So first, I just recap the session. First, we have two categories of the drug which increase the tooth movement and which decrease the tooth movement. Coming to the category of the drug which decrease the tooth movement, we have two categories: prostaglandin inhibitors, and second is the bisphosphonate. Coming to the prostaglandin inhibitors, we have three categories: steroidal, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and the other drugs which affect the prostaglandin level. So let's dive into the detail one by one. You have a situation like this. You must be aware of this cycle. Uh, as you need the arachidonic acid is released from the cell membrane, and in the cell membrane you have phospholipid. So there is an enzyme which is called phospholipase A2. So this phospholipase A2 is very important enzyme because it releases the arachidonic acid from the phospholipids of the cell membrane. You have a cell membrane in which you have a phospholipids, and what is the effect of this phospholipase A2? It releases the arachidonic acid from the phospholipid. So what happened with the arachidonic acid? It convert into prostaglandin H2 and into the leukotrienes. And two other enzymes are important, which is cyclooxygenase and lipoxygenase. I am sure you would be all well aware from this physiology and your pharmacology. So I'm not going into the full detail. My message for today is this: okay, there is a class of drug which is called non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and this drug basically act on this enzyme which is called cyclooxygenase. And cyclooxygenase, the importance of the cyclooxygenase is this, that it convert the arachidonic acid into the prostaglandin. I quickly revise. You have phospholipid in the cell membrane, and enzyme phospholipase A2 convert the phospholipid of the cell membrane into the arachidonic acid. And from the arachidonic acid, another very important enzyme which is called cyclooxygenase, this enzyme convert the arachidonic acid into the prostaglandin. Okay, if you are using any drug which fall in the category of the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, this drug would be affecting on the cyclooxygenase, and this will prevent the production of this inflammatory mediator, and hence it will decrease the inflammation. So that is very reason that this is called non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. Why is called anti-inflammatory? Because it will decrease the pain. And normally you are aware of this, that why you use NSAIDs, because this decrease the inflammation and decrease the pain. So what happened, for example, the clinical relevance of this problem is this: if the patient is presenting to you and you have applied any force for to move the tooth orthodontically, what happened? The patient start feeling pain and start using NSAIDs. So what would happen? This, theoretically speaking, this may decrease the inflammation along with decreasing the pain. So this will, theoretically speaking, this will decrease the orthodontic tooth movement. However, practically speaking, the evidence says you need a very high dosage of the NSAIDs in order to produce anti-inflammatory drug. On the mild doses, it has analgesic effect, and on a very high doses, it has anti-inflammatory effect. However, for orthodontic reasons, you have to use painkillers only for 1 to 2 days, or maximum for 3 days. But the orthodontic tooth movement is carried out for 1 month or 2 months, as per one activation. So practically speaking, if there is mild impact of this NSAID for 1 or 2 days, it doesn't matters a lot. Uh, but theoretically speaking, try to avoid this class of the drug for reducing pain in the orthodontic patient, because it can decrease the inflammation by acting on the cyclic oxygenase enzyme. Now come to the steroid. How does the steroid affect? As I said, there is a very important enzyme which is called phospholipase A2. So what does phospholipase A2? It convert the phospholipid into the arachidonic acid, and the steroid act on this enzyme. So if you are using in corticosteroid, this will be affecting on the phospholipase A2, and this will reduce the production of the arachidonic acid. Let's say, for example, a patient present to you and he is having a history of the asthma, and for the asthma he is using steroid, and the patient is with you. So you have to be smart enough to understand all the biology behind it, because this will the dosage of the steroid will decrease the orthodontic tooth movement, and you won't be able to produce significant presentable results. So now move on to the third category and third class of the drugs which can decrease the orthodontic tooth movement. In this category, you have tricyclic antidepressant, you have antimalarial, antiarrhythmic drug methylxanthine, or anticonvulsant drugs, and tetracycline. You might be confused how to memorize this. Let's dive into the mnemonics of these drugs. You have 6 class and categories of the drugs. Let's divide into 2 categories. One category is anti, and can you see and appreciate the word anti is used in 3 categories. You have antimalarial, antiarrhythmic, and anticonvulsant drugs. Antimalarial, antiarrhythmic, or anticonvulsant. If you make the mnemonics like from A, you will memorize anti, and the rest of the agent you will forget. So I have made a mnemonics like anti-MAC. Anti-MAC means K, anti, M for antimalarial drug, A for antiarrhythmic drug, or C for anticonvulsant drug. Anti-MAC, you see the picture over here, antimalarial, anticonvulsant, and antiarrhythmic drug. So now comes to the other 3 drugs. You have 3 other class. The remaining is tricyclic antidepressant, you have tetracyclines, and you have methylxanthine. To memorize this, you have the mnemonics, the money team, TMT, the money team. T for tetracycline, M for methylxanthine, and T for tricyclic antidepressant, which you can see over there. The money team. T for tricyclic antidepressant, M for methylxanthine, and T for tetracycline. So let's sum up. We have basically 2 classes of the drugs. One is that one which increase the tooth movement, and the other is which decrease the tooth movement. The drugs which increase the tooth movement are the prostaglandin, but their injection would be very painful. We have parathormone, but it would have a lot of systemic effect. It is not very practical to give this hormone into the patient. And you have relaxin, but this is a pregnancy hormone which increase the degradation of the collagen, but the evidence is not established so far. The other class of the drug is the prostaglandin inhibitors and the bisphosphonate. In the prostaglandin inhibitors, you have 3 categories: non-steroidal anti-inflammatory effect, which affect on cyclooxygenase. You have steroid, which affect on the phospholipase A2, and that decrease the production of the arachidonic acid. And you have other categories of the drug, which you have memorized with the mnemonics of anti-MAC, anti-malarial, anti-arrhythmic, anticonvulsant. And you have mnemonics like the money team, tricyclic antidepressant, methylxanthine, and other is tetracycline. So now comes to the other category of the drug, One is the prostaglandin inhibitor, the other is the bisphosphonate. What happened in the bisphosphonate? I said the bisphosphonate prevent the activation of the osteoclast. You must be aware of the word osteoporosis. What is osteoporosis? The density of the bone is decreasing. Osteoporosis means the bone is getting porous. How it is getting porous? Because it is getting demineralized with the passage of the time. So this is mostly happened in some kind of neoplasias, and this mostly happened after the menopause. Why menopause? It's more common, especially in the females, because the estrogen prevent the bone resorption. What I said, memorize the word, the estrogen prevent the bone resorption. So if the estrogen is preventing bone resorption after the menopause, what is happening? There is no estrogen which is preventing the bone resorption. So what would happen? You would be having a porous bone. So you have to give any kind of drug that could decrease the bone resorption. So how does the bone resorption is going on? By the osteoclast. So you have to give any kind of drug which is decreasing the activation of the osteoclast. Okay, so what does the bisphosphonate do? They attach with the osteoclast and resist the activation of this osteoclastic cells. So whenever the patient is presenting to you with the history of taking bisphosphonate, you have to be very alert about it. And there are two other issues with the bisphosphonate. One is a long half-life. Because of its half-life is very prolonged, even if the patient is stop using the drug. So we basically we have two categories of the bisphosphonate. One is a fast removal and the other is a long acting. If the patient is using a long acting, especially intravenous bisphosphonate, then intravenous bisphosphonate or long acting bisphosphonate would get incorporated into the bone. They are not on the surfaces. So if the bisphosphonate is incorporated into the bone, it may take few years to get eliminated from the bones. So that's why if the patient is using a very high dosage of the bisphosphonate that has been incorporated into the bone, if even after the stoppage of the drug, after consultation of the medical specialist, obviously you would not be interfering in the medication of the patient. Being an orthodontist, you would be requesting to the medical practitioner for changing the medication. After even if you stop using the bisphosphonate, one issue is of its very prolonged half-life. So the other category of the bisphosphonate is a fast moving, and in which their half-life is small, and they are incorporated on the surfaces of the bone. In this category of the bisphosphonate drugs, even if you stop using the bisphosphonate, the drug get eliminated. Even the drug get eliminated in 3 months. So even a 3 months is required to get the surface, the bisphosphonate which is deposited on the surfaces. So another issue is the bisphosphonate related osteonecrosis of the jaw. If you have given the bisphosphonate that has prevent the activation of the osteoclast, the bone resorption of the organic tissue is going on by the enzymes and everything. So this may lead to the development of the bisphosphonate related or medication related osteonecrosis of the jaw. So the take home message is this: you have mainly you have two categories of the drug which decrease the tooth movement, is the prostaglandin inhibitors and the bisphosphonate. In the prostaglandin inhibitors, you have steroidal, non-steroidal, and other drugs which decrease the tooth movement, and which include the anti-MAC, anti-malarial, anti-arrhythmic, anti-convulsant, and you have tetracycline, methylxanthine, and tricyclic antidepressant.